I applied for the fellowship specifically for the experience. I thought I could use real world experience, especially in international development, as it was a pathway I was interested in. As a part of AIF's land project, the Learning and Migration Program, I am placed currently in the village Subir, Dang, Gujarat.
The Banyan Impact Fellowship presented a unique opportunity to have an immersive experience in India, where I felt like I could again foster and build really meaningful and long-term impactful relationships.
So my project primarily has to deal with the learning resource centers in different villages here throughout Dang. And my specific job is to make different modules, different curriculum more innovative. By that meaning more interactive, more fun for students in order for them to not just learn, but also gain valuable 21st century skills, whether that be through arithmetic skills, reading, writing. And the overall goal is just increase retention rates in a lot of these areas.
I am building an assessment tool to help micro, small, and medium women-run enterprises assess their ability to scale their businesses. The biggest aim of this project is to enhance the autonomy of women entrepreneurs. But accessibility is a really big issue. So the aim of the tool is the idea that women can take the assessment and get the resources to help themselves. Women independently can understand their needs and the opportunities available to them and then take action on their own.
BIF didn't exist, the mental clarity of what I want to do in the future would not exist. I think I have much more direction, much more motivation, and especially having the support of BIF team has allowed me to really just know that I do want to do something more with international development.
In the future, I hope to continue working in the space of gender equity, women's leadership, and community development programs. In the fellowship, I've been able to see what really good project management looks like and all of the nitty-gritty details that come with it. And even though it's kind of a daring space, I know that this is an area that I think I want to work in for a really long time.
Hello everyone, good morning. It's 11 a.m. here in New York. Welcome to the Banyan Impact Fellowship for Service in India information session. We are delighted to have you with us today. My name is Hari and I serve as the Program Manager at American India Foundation. I also have with me our 2024 Banyan Impact Fellowship alumni, Jahnavi. Now pursuing her Master's in Art Therapy, Jahnavi uses art to support emotional development, education, and community engagement. From murals to mentorship, her work is rooted in creating meaningful change. Welcome, Jahnavi. In a short while, we'll hear more about Jahnavi's fellowship experience. The information session will begin with a brief 10-minute presentation covering the fellowship program and the application process. After that, our fellowship alumnus Jahnavi will share insights from her fellowship experience. We'll wrap up the session with a question and answer session. I encourage everyone on the call to drop their questions in the comment section and we'll address them towards the end of the call. Banyan Impact Fellowship is American India Foundation's oldest program. It started in 2001 and was formerly known as William J. Clinton Fellowship for Service in India. American India Foundation is committed to improving the lives of underprivileged, especially women, children, and youth. The Banyan Impact Fellowship is a binational volunteer service program in the US-India corridor with the mission to build a lasting bridge between the United Nations and India. The fellows, part of the first cohort, worked on disaster relief, but over the past 25 years, we have had 617 fellows work across 289 partner organizations on various projects closely linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The fellowship is a 10-month in-person volunteer service program in India between September and June. Fellows work on projects aligned to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Fellows, along with the host organization, defined project scope for the fellowship to serve the communities on ground. The program brings together both Indians and Americans to foster meaningful connections. Through a matching process, shortlisted candidates are matched with grassroots NGO in the development sector to accelerate impact in India. The thematic areas of the projects that the fellows work on have expanded from disaster relief in 2001 to different areas that include education, public health, livelihoods, climate justice, and many more. Banyan Impact Fellowship is a fully funded program that covers benefits such as professional development grants to mentoring program. Mentoring program is essentially delivered through our senior fellows who are seasoned social sector professionals, and also ongoing mentorship program through alumni, networking and career conversations with alumni from the fellowship, besides the living stipend, visa and travel expenses, health insurance and counseling, language training. Our application for the 26-27 cohort is live now. Here's the eligibility criteria. Applicants must fulfill the following criteria. Applicants must be a US citizen, permanent resident, or Indian citizen between ages 21 and 35, should hold a bachelor's or an undergraduate degree by the time they apply for the fellowship, willingness to learn with host communities, and should also have a commitment to positive and sustainable change in US India bridge building. Here's an overview of the fellowship selection process and structure. The selection process consists of two main stages: the application round and the matching round. In the application stage, you will submit written essays and participate in an interview if shortlisted. In your essays, we look for your motivation, why this fellowship, why you, and why now. Candidates who advance from the essay review will be invited for the interview round. Those who successfully complete the interview stage move on to the matching round. This step connects shortlisted candidates with potential host organizations. During this phase, you may engage with up to 3 organizations to explore alignment and fit. Once you receive an acceptance of match with the host organization, you officially become a fellow. Training then begins with a remote pre-orientation, followed by an in-person residential orientation in India. Besides the orientation at the beginning of the year, you will receive ongoing support through your program point of contact, your senior fellow mentorship, and other alumni throughout the fellowship. The fellowship is also an opportunity for you to have exposure to American India Foundation's programs and the development sector at large in India. The fellowship lasts 10 months, beginning with an in-person orientation in India in September. After orientation, you will move to your host organization and complete the remainder of the fellowship there. We reconvene at midpoint in January to share key learnings and reflect on the journey ahead. The fellowship concludes with a public seminar in June where you will present the work you accomplished during your fellowship. Sharing an overview of 2022-23 BIF Alum Erin's Fellowship Project to give you a sense of what the fellowship project can look like. Erin served in Jaipur, Rajasthan with an organization called EcoRap. During her fellowship, she worked with rural women in the community in recycling waste materials to build products and ensure sustainable means of livelihood through micro-enterprise opportunities. Here is a testimonial from Erin. Erin continues to build and observe EcoRap's Bayali initiative as the creative director and leads brand identity work. I'll pause for 10 seconds here so you get an opportunity to read Erin's testimonial. Similar to Erin's journey, nearly 67% of BIF alumni who graduate from the fellowship stay in the social impact space. Our alumni have a wide range of professional career paths, including investment partners, healthcare professionals, professors, founders, scientists, education consultants, diplomats, etc. Here are a couple of them. Monica Doshi, who currently works as assistant professor, Christopher Torrillo, who has co-founded MEDA and aspires to reach 1 million youth to make them job ready in India. Now we are moving to the much anticipated part of the information session, hearing from our fellowship alumnus Jahnavi about her fellowship journey. Hello Jahnavi, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about you, your placement city and your host organization?
Hi everyone, my name is Jahnavi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was placed in Udaipur in Rajasthan, and I was working with Vikalp Sanstan, which works with younger women from like the surrounding villages and surrounding areas to help them support their education, skill building. Yeah, and I'm currently pursuing a master's in art therapy, which I'll be finishing this spring, and then I will go on to be an art therapist.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Could you tell us a little bit about the work that you did as part of your fellowship?
Yeah, so I worked on a few projects. In this bottom picture, you can see I worked with a cohort of girls who were receiving a scholarship from Vikalp Sanstan. I believe there were about 28 of them total from 2 different village blocks. And so as part of my work, I taught English classes for them, which they requested. And I taught scholarship workshops monthly in which we did team building exercise, skill building, identity building. And then I separately also went to some of the villages and engaged in like community mural projects where the community and I, these were schools mostly. So schools, the kids and I sat down, we talked about women's rights, and with the girls, we spoke about empowerment, and based on the workshops that we did and the things we came up with, we created murals.
Thank you so much, Janvi, for sharing that. As we continue speaking, I just have a quick, announcement for the participants. I encourage everyone on the call to drop their questions in the comment section, and we'll definitely address them towards the end of the call. Coming back to you, Janvi, thank you for sharing your placement city and the project that you worked on. And it's wonderful to see, some of the pictures there. Could you walk us through some of the pictures and tell us what that means to you?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second picture on the top in the middle. That was the first mural that I completed at a school in Gogunda in not Obrakala, but a different village, just Jaswantgarh. And we sat down, all of the girls and I, and we talked about the different jobs that women could have. And we took some time to brainstorm, and then using the poles that are like on the school, we painted a woman in a different position on each of the 7 poles. So there was a dancer, there was a lawyer, there was a businesswoman, and the girls really enjoyed it. It was a really nice moment to also have them think about and be inspired by the things that they could do. And also a lot of them actually just weren't even familiar with painting, so they were really excited to mix colors and paint. I worked with the 8 to 12 girls, so 8th grade to 12th grade. So they were much older, but they helped each other, and a few of the younger kids came in and painted like smaller areas. There was a lot of arguments with the boys, which was really funny, where they were like, why can't we be on the wall? And and the girls explained to them what women's empowerment means. And I think those are really special moments. And then in the bottom corner and the top left corner are the second mural that I painted with girls, where we talked about like space for women and accessibility to different areas. Again, it was also like about different careers. You can see there's a doctor and a farmer. In the villages, there's like a leader of the village, the sarpanch. And so they, imagine that women could be sarpanches. And I remember there was one moment where we had a woman selling vegetables in the corner. We also made, you can see it's like part of it is night, part of it is day, and it's sunset. So also talking about walking around at night and being free to do that kind of thing. So the principal, who was a woman, she commented that the woman was selling vegetables at night. And one of the girls was like, yeah, when we're empowered and free, we'll be able to sell vegetables at night. So those are some great moments. And the last two pictures are just the scholarship girls that I worked with. That's me telling them scandalous things about America. And that's one of the students that I worked with who I'd like to highlight because she worked super, super hard. They all got on Duolingo and she learned a ton of English. She gave a full speech about herself in English when I was about to leave at the end of my time there, about her history and who she was and why she wanted to learn English. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing those lovely memories, Jahnavi. I think just seeing those pictures, makes me nostalgic. I used to be a primary school teacher 10 years ago, so wonderful to hear these stories. Now, coming back to, the fellowship, could you talk to us a little bit about, how the whole selection and matching process with your NGO happened during your time? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I applied, I got the interview, and then we were given the list of the organizations and we ranked them. And we weren't really given like identifying information. So it was really just like important that we choose it based on what we were interested in doing. So I didn't know Vikalp Sanstan. I didn't know where it was going to be necessarily, but I saw the women's empowerment and it seemed like a place where, I think my personal goal was I really, really wanted a place where I knew I could integrate art because it's very important to me. And also working with kids or working with women was also very important to me. So those are mainly the things that I applied for. But when I met with Vikalp Sanstan, ultimately we got the names of those organizations and interviewed with them. I felt like it was a really good fit. And I told them about the mural ideas that I had and they were really excited. They were excited about like the skills that I could bring. And I think I was just really excited for the creative freedom that they were, saying I could have with the scholarship girls, that they really just wanted me to work with them to figure out what they wanted from me and what I could offer them. And yeah, I thought that was a really nice opportunity. I was excited to try that.
Thank you for sharing that. And also, could you walk us a little bit about how you co-arrived at the scope of your work with your host organization as you started the project?
Yeah, so I think we sat down together and, I created a proposal where I outlined some of the things that they, said. And something that was important to me, at least, is we got together. The girls already had a scholarship meeting that happened once a month. But the organizers, the two founders of the organization were pretty busy and they were, trying to brainstorm new things and new skills to give those girls at that scholarship organization. And so in the first monthly meeting, I came to that meeting for the scholarship girls. And, I had some ideas, the mural, but we sat down with the girls and asked them, what kind of skills do you want? And so they said empowerment and confidence skills. They wanted to learn English. That was really important to them. Technology skills they really wanted to learn. That was important to them. So I think that was really nice that they gave us the freedom, also gave me the freedom and really cared about the girls' input. We really sat down with them and asked them, what do you guys need? And then from there, we came back and built out the workshops and what they should look like. They would happen over 2 days. So then I would plan like sessions. So yeah, I think that's how we mainly got started.
Brilliant to hear, especially, how you sort of took voice from the ground, especially the girl children, and sort of incorporated that in the scope of work that sort of, brings you so close to impact. So thank you so much for sharing that. Can you talk to us a little bit about, a key highlight from your fellowship that you wanted to share?
I was thinking about this because I don't know which one, because I have a lot. I think just, I mean, as you can see, my relationship with these girls was super, super important to me. And honestly, my relationship with a lot of people that I met was extremely important to me. I think it was really nice to give them a perspective of America that was balanced. I think that was very surprising to me at first. I think just like people in India were like, a lot of them just didn't really know also what happens on a day-to-day where I live. And I do speak Hindi, and I know we're going to get to that, but I think that was really helpful. They could really honestly ask me questions about what it felt like to live in America. And I think there were things that I could tell them that are true, like women walk around and can sell vegetables at night, and I think that was really nice to know that there is a future, another place. I mean, not that America's perfect, obviously, but to really have a balanced view of me to say, these things are nice about America, but these things are really nice about India, and really get that nuanced picture. And I was just floored, honestly, by their willingness to learn and like determination to get things done. I mean, girls here, it was crazy. They couldn't hold a light to them. So I had one student who lived in a super rural village, and she was, really, a lot of them were very anxious just based on like the discrimination also that they faced, to speak up for themselves and to talk and to speak English, which is really awkward for them. It was very difficult. They get shamed for that a lot. And so she was basically unable to get service. She would walk 20 minutes in the dark to get service to join the online call English class. And if she got booted out, she would call me on WhatsApp and join. And every time she would ask me a question, she would try to answer the question, and she would be like, I don't know, but I think it's this. And it was just incredible to see. She learned a ton of English. She did her Duolingo every day. And it was just so beautiful to see how strong her motivation was and how hard she worked.
No, it's brilliant. And your commitment sort of also shines through. We were just talking a little while before this call, and you mentioned how you still plan to meet them, and you're very much in touch with them, and, in terms of what's happening in their lives. So wonderful to hear that. While we've heard a highlight from your fellowship, could you also share, challenges that you faced during your fellowship?
Yeah. I think my relationship with the host organization could be difficult at times. And I think that's something that is important to highlight, especially as an American. I think I really struggled with parts of my identity at that point because I do speak Hindi, but I learned it myself. I didn't grow up, like culturally Indian. I'm only half Indian, and my father's from Suriname. So I think there were a lot of unspoken rules and unspoken cultural elements that I didn't know. And because I didn't know those, but I spoke Hindi, I think there was some, confusion about how I should be regarded. I think sometimes it was hard for people to regard me as someone who had grown up and, lived in America because I was doing such a good job culturally assimilating. So like, for example, I remember every day they would say like, Jahnavi doesn't know how to cook. And I was like, no, guys, I know how to cook. I cook every day. But in their heads, they just couldn't, I would say like, I don't know how to make roti, but I mean like literal roti. And in their minds, they were like, oh, she can't cook. But I went home and made, food for myself every day. So I think there were a lot of things also, like I'm used to pushing back, I guess, a little on like authority. I had to make a lot of adjustments. And I think that was difficult for me not to challenge authority in the way that I think is normal in America, but it comes off very disrespectful in India. So that was a big challenge. And like there were times when it was difficult to be like in the villages, like living in a very different way than I had lived before, not having an AC, not having power, those kinds of things. And I know we're going to talk about the community, so I won't say too much about that. But I just think the support that I received from people around me, especially when I found the people who really did understand the duality, really made it possible. But it like anything else, it was challenging, and I got homesick. So.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, Janvi, and being very candid with your experiences, and also being very nuanced in how you share that. Thank you. Just wanted to highlight how, each one of us, bring in such diverse lived experiences into the fellowship, and therefore the challenges that each one of us might be facing will be very unique to us. And thank you so much for articulating, your experience. That sort of also segue into your experience living in India. I know you spoke a little bit about that in the previous question, but do you want to share a few core events or memories that you have during the from the 10 months that you lived in India as part of your fellowship?
So this is something that's really important to me. Like, I just really care about my relationships with the people that I interact with, like, on a routine basis. And so every weekend I would go into the old city, and I had my favorite coffee shop, and my favorite, coffee shop had the guy, and he said hi, and we just, and those routines were really, really, I think, grounding for me, even when I was like feeling a little homesick. There were the people I would always see. I had my favorite shop. So anytime anyone came into town, I would bring them to that shop and we would buy from there. And I was very fortunate to I actually lived directly across from the office where I worked, which was tricky. And I lived in a section, like the lower section of their house, and the family lived upstairs, and they had a daughter who was about 15. And she and I would get together and paint together. Their family was incredibly welcoming, just the best ever. And my landlord was constantly shocked when I told him what it is like to have a landlord in America. He was like, "What are you talking about? I can't even believe they wouldn't say hello to you or anything like that." So I remember one of the first days when the power went out, I had been planning to cook, and I had just gotten vegetables, and then the power went out, and I had an electric stove. And so I came upstairs, and he was like, "Are you hungry?" And I was like, I could say no, but I'm actually starving. So they fed me dinner, and we just had a great conversation about that again. And he had an uncle there, and he was really curious about America. And so we were chatting for like 6 hours. So they really treated me like a family. And they had a very conservative grandma who was very scandalized by the things that I said and did, and the shorts that I wore. But I think I was just floored. And I wrote a couple of my blogs about this too, by the way that community operates in India, and how acceptance and food and community and safety were allowed even with some political disagreement or whatever, the case might be. But that grandma, whether or not I wore shorts, she was like, "Do you need to eat food?" And then she would feed it to me, and we had a great relationship. And that was very refreshing coming from here, I think.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Could you also talk to us a little bit about, I know you sort of, have extended family or roots in the country, but how was it coping in, a different language and culture altogether? Because, obviously the state that you were placed in, predominantly didn't speak Hindi, but other languages. So how did you find your footing there?
Yeah, it was tricky at times. I remember once I got on the bus and I had my headphones in, but there was nothing playing. And the bus driver wanted me to get in on the other door, so he kept shouting at me. And then in Hindi, they were like, if you took your headphones out, you would hear what I was saying. And I was like, wow, you were speaking Hindi, but it was in such an accent that I honestly couldn't understand. And there was nothing playing. So I think there were a lot of moments where I had to adjust, to think about my Hindi also, which is a little ancient. I said some offensive things by accident. There were a lot of mishaps, I think. I do think I was very lucky to speak Hindi, and I am lucky to like languages. But the girls, from those villages, they did speak Hindi, but they also spoke Malwadi. They're their village languages, and they're indigenous languages. And there were times when I would attend a meeting with women who didn't speak any Hindi. And it was definitely a window into what it would feel like to really not understand anything anyone was saying. So yeah, I think I definitely had the advantage, obviously, of speaking Hindi and being somewhat culturally Indian. But like I said before, I think I also had some disadvantage by being treated a bit like an American. And I know one of my other fellows, Mukund, he spoke about, I'm sure he spoke about that as well, because we had a similar experience with that, being half and being halfway there, but halfway not. But I think in Udaipur, people are very welcoming. That's very much the culture. I felt safer in that city than I felt in any other city in my life. And everyone there was extremely kind and welcoming. So I think there were a lot of opportunities, even if I didn't speak Hindi, to connect with people on a different level.
Got it. I think one last question from me before we sort of move to audience questions. Given for the most part of your life, you grew up in the US. How was it, navigating India and finding your own community in the 10 months that you were there? And if you could talk to us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
I think it was difficult for sure. I mean, it was like, stressful at first to like get the housing and like know where I was, to situate myself, to understand how to travel, how to deal with the money, how to deal with my phone. I think there were like just a lot of logistical things that needed to get worked out first. And I think I mostly, ended up in community with the people that I worked with and the girls that I worked with, the schools that I went to. The murals that we painted together, those were things that really grew my community. I don't think I had too many peers, who were like my age or similar to me, except others who were like interning at BICULP and working at BICULP, which was like a rotating group of people, which was also really nice. A lot of them came from different states. We had a lot of interns from Kerala, which was cool. That was very nice to meet them and like also understand their perspectives as like from a different part of India. And then, I just feel like my landlord, my rickshaw driver, my landlord's daughter. What else? I had like a favorite rickshaw driver who, we had a great relationship. The shop owner. I think there were a lot of people that you might not think of as your community, but that make those routines really special.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. I was talking to a fellow recently, and they similarly have like a rickshaw bhaiya who helps them.
Yeah.
So they keep sending us selfies from the rickshaw, and we are like constantly laughing. It's like, I think rickshaw is like an emotion. So
So I have a really funny story about that, which I'll try to make quick. But when we first met him, it was me and my colleague Sitara, and she was working at BICULP and she's from Kerala. And so the two of us mostly spoke English. And so we sat in the back of his rickshaw. First of all, he didn't want to take us. He was like, why would I take them? And the other rickshaw driver is like, what else are you going to do? You're just going to sit here. So he was in a horrible mood. And we sat in the back, and then he was really frustrated. We were speaking English. So he was like, can you guys speak in Hindi so that like I can understand? And so we ended up in this whole conversation with him. And this was at the very beginning of my fellowship. And then he ended up being my rickshaw driver until the end of my fellowship. And I really like to paint, and I just painted, like random things. And we were stuck in traffic one day, and I took a picture of him driving the rickshaw with like the traffic in the background and painted it. And I gave it to him, and I think he was just like, well, I don't even know what to do with this. And I went back inside to get a bag to put the painting in. And when I came back out, he was like, what? He was just staring at it. And I just love that moment. I got a picture of him with the painting, and he was super proud. So
thank you so much for sharing that. I think these moments make the fellowship even more special because you experience things that otherwise you wouldn't, so thank you, Jahnavi, for sharing that. Coming to audience questions now. The first question, Jahnavi, is in what ways has the Banyan Impact Fellowship shaped the path that you are on now? Has it helped you discern what's next in your career?
Yes, definitely, without question. I was already applying to art therapy programs, but this really solidified that that's for sure what I want to do. I think I got to practice a lot of those. I've created a mural alone, but I've never really created a mural in tandem with the community, and I really appreciated getting the chance. We had 3 or 4 workshops, including drawing and writing exercises, to really like work with the community to decide what they wanted to see. And I think just seeing like them painting their pride, like was really I was like, yes, this is definitely what I want to do. And I think I also chose the Banyan Impact Fellowship because I really wanted to know that I could live in India and work there and immerse myself in the community and really be able to do that. And I think it was important for me to prove that to myself, and I did. And it definitely makes me feel like I would go back for sure. And I think so. My friend and I are hoping to someday start our own nonprofit in Udaipur to do some of this work with the girls who are there, because they're still very underserved. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Jahnavi. I think the next question is around post-fellowship opportunities. I think I can take a stab at that. And Jahnavi, please feel free to come in based on your experience and you were part of a cohort, so insights into how some of your peers are doing today. So in terms of post-fellowship opportunities, we see at least 67% of the alumni, on average, stay back within the social impact space. So this could be, in education, public health, livelihoods, climate change, or international development work. So that's where most of our alumni sort of pivot to. Some alumni stay back within India, do other fellowships, work with other NGOs and social enterprises in the past. A lot of times fellows host organizations, like in Erin's case that I mentioned earlier, she continues to work with EcoRap. In some cases, fellows get to meet other leaders within the social impact space during the fellowship time, network, and find full-time opportunities. So there are opportunities to do that. Are we given resident and transport facilities during the fellowship or not? So while you come to India for the orientation, your entire residence and travel is taken care of. As soon as you relocate to your host location, you are given a settling in grant, but you are expected to take care of the rent month on month basis for your fellowship. So your host community, your host organization supervisor will help you with leads in the community to find housing. So that is how that works. In terms of travel, whenever you're traveling for work, which is for Midpoint Conference or to observe another fellow's work as part of your professional development grant, those travel are reimbursable by AIF. If you're traveling for field work as part of your fellowship, that will come from your host organization. So that is that in terms of transport. Anything that you want to add here, Janvi, before we moved on?
Yeah, I think there's and this is something that I asked a lot of previous fellows when I was applying, like just it's a very stressful like thing to imagine, just like going to a different country or like even a different part of the country and like figuring out how to live there. But everybody that I know, their host organization was super helpful and they were always able to find housing that was very reasonable. And I had no problem like living under the stipend. So I know that's like a worry for some, but it is very, very manageable. And I think especially if you're already from India and you know what things cost and you're not getting scammed as an American, then even better.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I think the next question is around track. So right now we are accepting applications only for the India track. So people are invited to apply for the India track of the fellowship and the applications are live online. Awesome. Janvi, I think one last question from my end. For applicants that are in the final year of college or thinking about the fellowship, what is that one advice that you have for them, if they are on the fence and wanting to give this, a try, what would you share with them?
This might be controversial. Do not go straight to grad school. I think you will regret it. That is what, and I know that may not be a popular opinion. I think it's getting a little more popular, but there are few opportunities I feel in our lives when we can really just like take a break, do something else, experience something new. And I think right after undergrad is one of them. It is a time to get real life experience. And, I wanted to go into art therapy, but I came into undergrad wanting to be a lawyer. And I think you have to take a deep breath and really experience something different in order to know which track you really want to go on. Grad school is a lot of money and a lot of time. And I think it's really important to take the time to do something that makes sure, even if you go and you are like, you know what, now I don't want to do this thing, that is more information for you to make the right decision about grad school. So not everybody's going to grad school, but if you are, I would say take your time and really decide and do this fellowship and then decide, because the real life experience will really change your perspective and help you.
Thank you, Janvi. Thank you so much for that. That brings us to the closure of this information session. Thank you, Janvi, again for wonderfully sharing your fellowship experience with us and sort of helping us vicariously live through your fellowship experience, through sharing some memories and pictures with us. Really appreciate you taking the time and doing this. Thank you everyone for joining us on this live to listen into Jahnavi's fellowship experience. If you have any further questions or you want to stay in touch, please write to me. You have my email ID on the screen. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.